Imagine your best friend smiles while stealing your life. Emmy finds justice in Gilded in Vengeance by Lyssa Mia Smith. This book gives you hope and teaches you to judge people well. You will look smart. Watch and read it.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we have an exceptional stack of sources in front of us. It's a deep dive into what feels less like a historical novel and more, I think, like a masterclass in fantasy execution.
Yeah.
Gilded in Vengeance.
It is a phenomenal example of how to build a world. And for you, the learner, our mission today is ambitious. We are not just going to recount the events of the narrative.
No, not at all.
We're going to dismantle the mechanics of the story, how the author uses the hard rules of their magic system, the profound specificity of the setting, and the complexity of its character archetypes to build a narrative that is both, devastatingly intimate and truly epic in scope.
And what immediately hooks you, just looking through these sources, is that core conflict. It is so deliciously low stakes on a global level, yet catastrophically personal.
Exactly. We aren't talking about the fate of continents here.
Not at all. This is a story of betrayal, of social maneuvering, and just incredibly high-stakes revenge. It's fueled by what the author calls the precise pain of a friend's knife deep in their backs.
That phrase, which, it functions almost as a dedication, doesn't it? It sets the entire emotional tenor.
It tells you everything you need to know about the tone.
It tells you this story is going to be vicious, it's going to be focused, and probably a little claustrophobic. And the two central figures are protagonist Emmy Vilello and her antagonist Grace Montgomery. They start as girls who hid magical invitations under the floorboards of their shared tenement in 5 Points.
Closer than sisters, is how it's put.
Yeah, and that decade-long foundational trust is what makes the frame-up the central catalyst for Emmy's rage so absolutely excruciating to read.
And their divergent paths are established so quickly, so efficiently. Emmy's goal was, scholarly. She wanted to lose herself in libraries, poring over ancient magical texts.
While Grace's goal was purely aspirational.
Purely. Closets bursting with fashionable gowns, a determination to never, ever return to the squalor south of Houston Street.
So their goals were always destined to clash, weren't they? Because one valued knowledge and the other valued status above all else.
And that tension, that central conflict between knowledge versus status, it is entirely dependent on the setting. We are plunged into 1880s New York City.
And the novel doesn't just use a generic Victorian backdrop. It's specifically the Gilded Age, where wealth wasn't just immense, it was. It was ostentatious and deeply, deeply judgmental.
You feel that violent clash immediately. The absolute exclusivity of Fifth Avenue versus the grimy, dense existence of 5 Points, of Baxter Street, where Emmy lived on the 5th floor of a tenement.
The sources make that spatial geography a crucial element of the world building. It is not merely rich versus poor.
No, it's more than that.
It's gilded versus grimy, where this beautiful facade of propriety hides just immense cruelty. This deep dichotomy establishes that the primary theme of the novel is access and exclusion, long before we even hear about the invisible magical mist, the Broom.
Which I think leads us to the critical question that this entire deep dive has to answer, right?
Yeah.
How does high fantasy magic, this thing called Conjure, how does it manage to thrive in the hyper-realistic, hyper-judgmental worlds of the Gilded Age elite?
And the answer the sources provide is unsettling. The magic doesn't exist alongside the social architecture.
No, it's completely woven in.
It is completely molded and, frankly, weaponized by it. The magic is the engine of the social cruelty.
Which brings us, I think, perfectly into our first extensive section, the genre and world-building foundation. We really need an exhaustive analysis of this very specific subgenre, the Gilded Age fantasy of manners.
It's a brilliant synthesis. Let's start with that historical specificity you mentioned. The author is just meticulous. The entire crisis kicks off at the 127th Annual Magical Debutante Ball at Stratton Mansion, 5th Avenue on Saturday evening, January 24th, 1880.
Wow.
When an author gives you the exact date of a fictional event, they are essentially promising that the historical context is paramount. It's not just flavor.
That focus on the 1880s is so key. You think about it, it's the age of the robber barons, of racket urbanization, massive political corruption.
All of it.
It's also ripe for a fantasy structure that's built on hiding secrets behind money. You get this contrast between the vast, almost unreal scale of the Wealthstrad Mansion, Clarity Hall, Mistfield Manor, in the summer haven of Avalon-on-Hudson.
And Emmy's origins at 31 Baxter Street. And we get that gut punch reminder that even after Emmy left, the memory of Mistfield Manor, which was only occupied in the summer.
Just in the summers.
It shattered her previous notions of what true, almost disgusting wealth looked like. The sheer size of those summer estates is a physical manifestation of the exclusivity and the wealth gap, a gap that magic only widens.
So the dichotomy isn't just a backdrop. It determines who holds the power.
Yeah.
And the novel's atmosphere is this constant, suffocating tension between glamour and peril.
Yeah.
The invitation to the ball, which should be this ticket to social acceptance, it warns sharing this invitation with uninvited parties is punishable by death.
The stakes are immediately existential, right? Even when they're worn beneath silk gowns.
And that is the absolute essence of the fantasy of manners subgenre. The magic, this conjury, it's integral to your social standing, but it has to be subtle, it has to be refined, and above all, it must be kept secret from the ordinaries.
And success requires being well-spoken, and more importantly, belonging. Emmy and Grace were educated at the mission school, which was an act of charity by the society to ensure they were, at least, polished before being assessed for their social worth.
The appearance of propriety is the greatest magical defense mechanism they have. The ultimate subversion of Gilded Age sensibility is this. The only thing more valuable than inherited wealth is inherited magical wealth, provided you can maintain the facade of respectability and, keep the secret.
This is the scaffolding for the whole thing, the Society of the Charmed. It's an exclusive club governed by a triumvirate, the Chancellor, the Commander, and the Keeper.
It sounds so formal, so structured.
It is, and it's specifically designed to protect the secret of Conjure and maintain a lavish lifestyle. They have their own laws and, most terrifyingly, their own justice system for charmed individuals who fall outside the elite. Emmy's wrongful imprisonment in Grimsbane Tower is the direct consequence of this absolute self-contained power.
Okay, so let's take that extended tangent now, as the critique suggested, and really analyze that triumvirate structure itself. A triumvirate chancellor, commander, keeper, that implies a division of labor, right?
Yes, a system of political checks and balances intended to prevent tyranny. It's a structure we see pretty often in high fantasy organizations that are designed for longevity. The Chancellor handles the law and ceremonies, the Commander handles the magical military, and the Keeper handles the treasury and the budget.
So if this system were functioning as intended, they should, in theory, keep each other honest.
They should. The Keeper, with the power of the purse, should be able to restrain the military overreach of the Commander, and both of them should be able to challenge the legal decisions of the Chancellor. It's an ideal of three equal branches.
But that is not what we see in Gilded Inventions.
Not even close. What we see is immediate systemic corruption by a single family, the Strattons. Chancellor Stratton, the nominal head of law, uses his position to protect his own son, Oliver, who is, well, he's a destructive, arrogant bully.
So that immediately breaks the supposed checks and balances.
It shatters them. Oliver's father, the Chancellor, uses his political capital not just to enable Oliver's crimes, but to push through systemic changes, like blaming immigrants for the weakening of the Broom to solidify his own power base.
He weaponizes bigotry.
He absolutely does. He weaponizes bigotry to create a false crisis, which then allows him to propose limiting access to the Broom to society members only. It's a classic power grab.
And the other two, the Commander and the Keeper, they just go along with it.
They appear either unable or unwilling to curb the Chancellor's abuses, and that is the failure of the institution. It defaults to an oligarchy where inherited political power, the Chancellor role, overrides any of the structural safeguards.
So the Strattons use the power of the triumvirate to enforce their private will, rather than uphold the public good of the charmed community.
And that fundamentally changes the nature of the society. It ceases to be a functional government, and it becomes, as you said, a ruthless private club. The only true check on their power isn't another triumvirate member, but the risk of exposing magic to the ordinary world, a risk Oliver takes later at the Bronze Door, which just confirms their willingness to sacrifice the greater good for self-preservation.
And that analysis really highlights the political geography of the society itself.
Yeah.
The conflict is localized between Manhattan, the center of commerce, and working class origins.
And Avalon-on-Hudson, the exclusive retreat, even the prison Grimsbane Tower being placed near Randall's Island, is so strategic.
It's close enough to the city's ordinary prisons to reinforce the idea that the society models its cruelty on ordinary justice.
But just far enough away to keep the mess contained, out of sight, out of mind for the ordinaries.
And the foundation of this entire ethical conflict, the thing that fuels Emmy's revenge, is the society's explicit bigotry. The sources call them full of elitist bigots, blaming the weakening of Conjure, the Broom weakening on too many people sharing the Broom, specifically blaming immigrants.
This is the systemic enemy Emmy is fighting. She is an Italian immigrant from 5 Points. Her father was loved and respected, yet he and Emmy were still the precise targets for this kind of scapegoating.
So her imprisonment wasn't just a criminal matter.
No, it was a political maneuver by the chancellor to consolidate power by targeting the most marginalized members of their community.
It elevates her personal revenge from simply clearing her name to fighting a system that is built on xenophobia and secrecy. It's a brilliant way to integrate social commentary directly into the magical decay of the world.
And that leads us seamlessly into Section 2, the magic system and world rules. We need an exhaustive analysis of Conjure, looking at the hard versus soft divide.
Okay, so the core power source is the Broom. It's described as a heavy, invisible mist. Conjure is the act of drawing from this mist, so it's a defined, finite, and costly resource.
The physical cost is what makes this a hard magic system. It's not effortless casting. It's not just waving a wand and saying some words.
Right.
When Emmy conjured that tin soldier into gold at the ball, the sources are crystal clear. Her muscles trembled from the effort. It is grueling. And this is a crucial rule. Power acquisition requires a genuine physical tax, not just intention.
And Emmy's specific gift, this transformation Conjure, is highly specialized. It's focused only on non-living matter. She transforms tin to gold, glass to soft paper, and critically she can manipulate records, like creating new familial lines in the Fontaine book.
And we have to contrast this with her father, Matteo Vilello. His gift was healing, which only worked on living things.
Ah, that's a key distinction.
It is. Emmy's ability to manipulate non-living physical reality is what makes her such an existential threat to the society. And you have to ask, why?
Because their entire power structure is built on things she can change.
Exactly. The society's power is built on fixed records, fixed social standing, and fixed wealth. Emmy's gift can undermine all of it. She can conjure wealth out of nothing and erase an identity with the stroke of a pen.
Now let's look at the Stratton's magic. Silencing and suppression Conjure. This is magic used purely for control, isn't it?
Purely. Oliver and his father use it to mute entire crowds, to muffle screams, or to suppress movement, freezing Emmy in place at the ball, rendering her mute, or freezing Jack during that confrontation.
It's the magic of oppression.
Yes, it's designed to enforce silence and immobility. It is the perfect tool for an oligarchy that relies on secrets and controlling the narrative.
And then there's Jack's gift, the silver-black Fontaine flames
Yeah.
and fire magic. It's unique, it's destructive, yet it seems highly controlled.
And the rules are absolute. The fire does not burn those who wield it. Jack can walk through it. He can reach into bonfires. It's a tool for destruction. Sure, it's capable of burning holes through thick walls, but its most crucial function is its use in ancient ceremonies.
Specifically sealing the relics.
Exactly. It's a destructive force that is intrinsically linked to the preservation of lore and history.
Which moves us perfectly to the escalation of power.
Hmm.
The relics and this concept of bridging, the Rose Fontaine relic is really the centerpiece of the ancient lore.
And we have to detail this. It's not just a simple magical artifact. It's described as gilded bone fragments from an amplifying witch's sternum just above the heart, sealed in silver and gold by Fontaine fire.
Just that description alone.
It establishes deep ancient magical practices that predate the current society structure. This isn't something they made last year. This is old magic.
And the relic functions on 2 levels. Prophecy, through Rose's drawings, her own death, Jack's death, Caleb's quiet future, Emmy in the alley.
And amplification. This allows Emmy to use her conjuring stronger, to transform faces, to win at poker by manipulating the cards.
So this is where we need to execute that detailed comparison the listener requested. The difference between amplification and concentrated essence. Because they sound similar, but they're not.
Not at all. Rose's relic amplifies inherent power. It takes Emmy's existing high-skill transformation gift and it turbocharges it. She can suddenly pull the broom far beyond her natural limits. It's a volume enhancer.
But Emmy's father's relic, which is Sword and Grace's necklace, is entirely different.
Completely. It's a concentrated storage of a foreign gift essence, in this case, healing. Grace doesn't gain transformation power from it. She gains healing power, which she then uses for self-preservation. It is a captured, defined spell or ability that is wholly separate from the user's inherent gift.
So the implications of Rose's relic are that it allows the possessor to basically transcend their natural limits entirely, to become a magical powerhouse.
While the implications of Mateo's relic are that magic can be stored, monetized, and most importantly, stolen, which leads directly to bridging Conjure.
And bridging is the truly horrifying power. It's Grace's chosen method of ascension. It's the ability to steal or borrow a person's gift essence and incorporate it into an object, effectively giving Grace access to an entire arsenal of powers she hasn't earned.
And we should meticulously catalog Grace's use of bridging because it's the narrative engine of Betrayal. First, she frames Emmy using fool's gold derived from her father's sacred healing gift, a profound desecration.
That's just vicious.
It's awful. Then she uses it to create enchanted fabric, the debutante gown, the continuously moving patterns on Claire's clothes. She steals Mary's invisibility, and perhaps most damagingly, she steals Oliver's movement suppression to create the blanket trap during the fire and the truth-suppressing pin later on.
And the most personal use. Stealing Papa's healing gift essence and preserving it in a bandage to heal her own arm at the climax. Bridging allows Grace to turn personal relationships and magical ability into commodities she can just store and use indefinitely.
The ultimate corruption, however, is revealed through the Clara-Claremont connection. This is the moment where the global magical decay is reframed as a commercial problem, not an immigration problem.
Ah, the big twist. Clara's enchanted gowns, the Clara originals, were actually siphoning the broom from the wearer.
This resource strain was causing the weakening of Conjure across the entire society. It's what eventually killed Henrietta, the girl in magenta, whose gown literally drained her at the lawn party.
So the society, in its arrogance and bigotry, was blaming too many people sharing the broom, meaning the immigrants.
When the truth was that the corruption was internal, it was commercial, and it was systemic. Clara, enabled by Grace's bridged magic, was monetizing the magic resource itself, causing a collective magical depletion.
This feels like the perfect moment for our extended tangent on magic costs and economic systems in fantasy literature, as requested. The book is making a profound statement about resource exploitation here.
It absolutely is. I mean, in so many high fantasy settings, magic is tied to physical risk or spiritual cost, or maybe rare ingredients you have to find.
Right. Think about the costs of drawing from the Force in Star Wars, the risk of the dark side, or the moral cost of using dark magic in Lord of the Rings.
But here, the cost is purely economic and communal. The society essentially created a public magical resource, the broom, and then they allowed the elite to treat it as a private, exploitable commodity.
So Clara's gowns are the magical equivalent of a monopoly polluting a shared river for private profit.
That's a perfect analogy. They extracted the energy that sustained the collective magic without paying the cost, leaving the marginalized to take the blame for the resulting smog or depletion.
It directly mirrors the economic reality of the Gilded Age, doesn't it? Industrialists amassing immense, visible wealth by exploiting natural resources and cheap labor, leading to vast social decay and political corruption that was often masked by, philanthropy or moral posturing.
So Clara, the villain who seems focused on fashion and commerce, is actually the engine of the society's ecological destruction. She isn't some dark sorceress. She's a capitalist exploiting an invisible public resource. Her business becomes the ultimate engine of systemic magical pollution.
Which means the Strattons are doubly culpable. They perpetuated the lie about immigrants while simultaneously enabling Clara's commercial corruption, which was draining the very magic they claimed to protect.
And this elevates the revenge plot into a righteous crusade against both corporate and political corruption.
That structural complexity brings us to Section 3. Characters, archetypes, and conflicts. Let's start with Emmy Vilello, the reluctant Avenger.
Emmy's transformation is the core narrative arc. She starts as this naive girl. She's broken by betrayal and imprisonment in Grimsbane, marked by the lost voice and the desperate tally marks on the wall.
And she morphs into Winnie Fairchild.
Yes, the ruthless socialite who is absolutely driven by justice and clearing her father's name.
The important distinction, though, is that her driver is honor, not personal gain. She is ruthless, yes, but her moral compass survived Grimsbane. We see this so acutely when she confronts Jack about the servants' bets.
That confrontation is Emmy's line in the sand. Jack dismisses the practice of betting on the servants' romantic lives as just commonplace, and he states he never questioned cruelty toward the people who looked after your well-being.
And Emmy's response is just fury at his casual indifference to the marginalized.
It demonstrates that the veneer of Winnie Fairchild is just that, a strategy. The core Emmy, the one who despises injustice, is still there. She's forced to adopt ruthlessness, but she refuses to adopt heartlessness. She may be an Avenger, but she has not become the monster that Grace or Oliver is.
Okay, now, Jack Fontaine. He is the archetype of the rake with the secret heart. On the surface, he's the drunken, reckless, handsome scoundrel obsessed with revenge for his sister Rose.
And Caleb even warns Emmy, right? He says, she also drew him kissing several girls. Even if he manages to live past June, I wouldn't get too attached. He just embodies this kind of nihilism.
His self-destructive behavior, the heavy drinking, the cavalier attitude, it's all fueled by fate. He accepts Rose's prophecy of his predicted death by winter. He acts like a man with nothing to lose because he believes his expiration date is sealed.
But the secret completely reframes his character. The sources detail that Jack went to jail for Emmy. He was harassing his father, desperate to help this wrongfully accused girl, and it resulted in his own imprisonment for unrelated charges.
And that detail about his conjure is just heartbreaking. He was in Grimsbane near Emmy, and he used his silver-black fire magic, the only thing he had left, the thing that does not burn him, to keep her warm through the wall.
It was a secret act of magical devotion that transforms him instantly from a rakish flirt into a devoted, doomed protector.
He had been searching for her for 5 years. Ever since Rose's prophecy revealed Emmy as the woodland girl, the one who would touch his face like he wasn't bad luck personified.
So his initial taunting, his apparent selfishness, it was all a defense mechanism against a profound, fated love he thought was guaranteed to end in tragedy. He was trying to push her away to protect her from his own prophesied doom.
It's a marvelous subversion of the chosen one trope. Emmy isn't chosen to save the world.
No, she's chosen to save him from the nihilism imposed by destiny. His intimate knowledge of her life, her address, her father's teaching, it wasn't just research. It was a 5-year devotion driven by a drawing.
And we can't overlook the loyal supporting cast. Caleb, the telepath, and Jimmy, the ordinary. Caleb is the quiet workhorse, the strategic mind.
Caleb's value is immense. He can mind-read the chancellor, providing critical intel, setting up all the political schemes, yet the society's prejudice against his gift is clear. They'd avoid him like the plague. He is relegated to the invisible role of a steward.
But he insists on posing as the wealthy chaperone, Paxton Fairchild, which reveals his hidden ambition. He doesn't want to be just a servant.
And the sources also provide that beautiful, quiet detail. Rose's prophecy shows him dying peacefully in old age alongside Jimmy, his lover. He hides this prophecy because he fears that sharing a positive destiny will somehow break the bond they have. It's a really complex layer of fear and love.
And Jimmy Lai, the construction worker, he is the ordinary anchor. He's essential for logistics, emotional grounding, and providing that crucial external perspective. He is a constant reminder of the street-smart world outside the society's bubble.
Jimmy is the ethical standard of the group. He cannot rely on magic, which makes his bravery, jumping into the river to distract guards, tackling opponents. It's purely physical and moral courage. He keeps Emmy sane and reminds her of the family she is fighting for.
And finally, Grace Montgomery. She is the ultimate frenemy. She's not a dark lord seeking some kind of cosmic evil.
No, she's a ruthless social climber who weaponizes intimacy.
Her motivation is entirely materialistic. She sought patronage and status because she didn't want to stoop to cleaning her rich aunt's floors. She betrayed Emmy because she needed to be the only protege. Her cruelty is born of deep insecurity and the extreme social pressure of the Gilded Age, which makes her betrayal feel agonizingly personal.
Let's dedicate our extended tangent now to comparing Grace to other literary frenemies. She's often compared to Amy Dunn from Gone Girl, but I think that's too simplistic. Amy's cruelty is about psychological warfare against a spouse. Grace's cruelty is structural and social.
That's a great point. I see Grace less as a sociopath and more as a magical Becky Sharp from Thackeray's Vanity Fair.
Oh, that's good. The ultimate social climber. Becky Sharp manipulated the entire English aristocracy through sheer ambition and performance. Grace does the same, but with the added layer of magical duplicity. Her goal is not love, it's status and survival at the highest echelon.
The key subversion is that she targets intimacy. Traditional villains attack openly. Grace performs friendship for years, only to use that proximity to ruin Emmy.
And that ultimate lie, pretending to be Mary, the maid, for weeks, is just breathtaking in its sustained effort.
She wore a cross imbued with Emmy's father's healing conjury to mask her true appearance while getting Emmy to confess her entire revenge strategy. She didn't just steal Emmy's secrets. She leveraged Emmy's compassion and her profound yearning for female connection.
It moves the conflict squarely into the psychological thriller realm, just using fantasy elements as tools for profound personal damage.
This complexity in character sets the stage for the highly structured plot. We should move now to Section 4, Plot, Quest, and Epic Scope, starting with a strategic analysis of the 4 targets. The critique noted we need to analyze the strategy of the order, not just list the outcomes.
Good idea. The structure is a highly controlled list of takedowns, designed to destabilize the Stratons from the bottom up. They start with commerce and pride, move to physical power and greed, and then end with political power.
Okay, so Phase 1, Clara Claremont, Pride Commerce. Attacking her first makes perfect sense. She is the weak link, right? The most visible and commercially vulnerable.
And the plan was brilliant. Infest her enchanted gowns, the Clara originals with lice and bedbugs. The goal was immediate, visible shame.
And it works instantly, with Mrs. Stratton scratching her neck. By attacking her commercial greed, they immediately expose the link between the society's systemic problems, the Broom weakening, and Clara's capitalist ruthlessness. They dismantle the lie about immigrants first.
Phase 2. Oliver Stratton. Greed, physical power. Attacking Oliver next is strategic because he is the most volatile and arrogant. The trap is set at the Bronze Door gambling hall. They lure him there, knowing his arrogance will compel him to cheat with his suppression conjuring.
This phase needed Emmy's and Jack's combined high-risk skills. They utilized Emmy's invisibility, her transformation, and the truth conjuring from Agnes.
And the near-failure Oliver using suppression conjuring on the ordinaries to avoid arrest is crucial. He risks exposing the entire secret of magic to save his own skin, which just confirms his fatal flaw. Arrogance and a total disregard for the society's foundation.
He is only jailed because Jack risks his life to distract Oliver, allowing Emmy to apply the truth conjuring to the onlookers, which forces the police to intervene. The strategy here is using Oliver's own greed to confirm his moral bankruptcy to the ordinary world.
Phase 3. Chancellor Stratton. Political power paranoia. This is the ultimate goal, and the approach is purely psychological, orchestrated by Caleb. They use Caleb's telepathy to feed the Chancellor false information that Keeper Windsor is conspiring against him.
So the plan relies entirely on the Chancellor's paranoia and lust for power, the fatal flaw that was established way back when he blamed immigrants for the Broom.
Exactly. He is so focused on consolidating his own power that he will turn on his own Triumvirate members without a second thought.
And the devastating climax. The Chancellor arrives at the masquerade ball. He confronts Windsor with a gun, having already stabbed Caleb. His death, shot by a responding guard, is a direct result of Jack and Emmy's manipulation of his fatal flaw. They didn't have to kill him.
No, they just had to nudge his paranoia towards self-destruction.
That structure leads us directly to the escalation of conflict and pacing. The entire revenge scheme is constrained by that frantic 4-week clock ending at the Golden Gala.
That time constraint is a constant pressure cooker. It forces the characters into high-risk, morally ambiguous actions. Emmy is forced to transform glass at the society headquarters. Jack is drinking heavily, and the stakes escalate from, social blunders to real physical threats. Oliver's knife, the Chancellor's gun.
We should pause here for the extended tangent on the classic literary use of the timeline constraint. Why is 4 weeks, ending at a social event, such an effective constraint in this context?
Well, in high fantasy, time constraints are often tied to prophecy or impending doom. If the hero doesn't get the sword by the winter solstice, the Dark Lord wins, that kind of thing.
But here, the clock is purely social and legal. 4 weeks until the end of the social season, when the elite return to the city and the Stratton's power would be solidified through new legislation.
This grounding in social reality intensifies the stakes far more than a simple world-ending threat. Failure doesn't mean the world collapses. It means Emmy and Jack will be executed as criminals, confirming the society's narrative that they were always low-class, fraudulent threats.
So it raises the stakes of social judgment above physical survival. If they fail, they die in shame and obscurity, and their memory is forever tarnished.
Exactly. This forces the author to prioritize specific, high-impact events, the ball, the gambling hall, the gala, which define the Gilded Age setting perfectly. Every single moment has to count because their reputation, which is the only thing they are fighting to clear, is on the line.
The peak escalation, of course, is the final betrayal. Grace as Mary. This shows that Grace was always one critical step ahead, leveraging Emmy's most desperate need female friendship against her, all while wearing Papa's healing conjury.
The revelation that Grace replaced Rose's relic with a truth-suppressing pin just before the climax is a masterstroke of villainy. It demonstrates that Grace is not only ruthlessly ambitious, but exceptionally skilled at magical strategy. She used Emmy's compassion as her greatest weakness.
And this complexity brings us to Section V, Themes and Philosophy. We need to go deep into the interlocking themes of wealth, class, and justice.
The contrast between 5 Points and Fifth Avenue is the foundation. Emmy's childhood, being taught by her father in the basement of the mission school, stands in stark opposition to the sheer decadence of the Stratons. It is a world where immense wealth means you are literally insulated from the consequences of your magic use.
And Emmy's identity as an Italian immigrant from 5 Points is the constant obstacle. The society's decision to use immigrants as a scapegoat for the Broom weakening is a direct political weapon.
We see that bigotry institutionalized. Agnes, the truth conjurer, agrees to stay silent about Grace's deals because she gets to keep her magic, highlighting that charmed people outside the elite must barter their very power just to survive under the society's systemic oppression. They are only valued if they can be exploited.
Now for the central philosophical question. Is Emmy's quest purely justice, or does it tip into moral gray areas?
Jack, with his nihilistic pragmatism, explicitly states they are exacting their own personal form of justice and evening the score. They manipulate the Stratons into their own destruction. They lie, they cheat, they cause public humiliation, and they are directly responsible for multiple deaths. They are vigilantes, not heroes in white hats.
But Emmy retains a crucial moral compass. That conversation about the servant's bets forces her to recognize Jack's moral failings, complicating her feelings for him. She wants to believe he is the selfless man who kept her warm in Grimsbane.
But he forces her to confront his past complicity, acknowledging he participated in Commander Stratton's raids and is far more like Oliver.
This moral ambiguity makes her climactic choice so powerful. The ultimate triumph is when Emmy chooses to save Grace by deflecting the truth conjury at the masquerade ball.
Even after everything, Grace had ruined her life, betrayed her father, framed her. Yet Emmy cannot stand by and watch the Strattons use their power to enforce lies, specifically about Lizzie Windsor's death.
This is the moment where integrity triumphs over revenge. Her conscience is resurrected at the absolute worst time for her meticulously planned revenge, but it is the moment where she repudiates the Stratton's core philosophy, the use of power to enforce deception. She chooses truth and moral consistency over the satisfaction of seeing Grace destroyed.
Let's shift to destiny, trauma, and healing, specifically through the weight of Rose's prophecies. The drawings are not just plot devices, they are philosophical anchors.
Rose's prophecy imposed such a heavy burden on Jack. His nihilism stems directly from accepting his predicted death by winter. He knew the general timeline, so he acted recklessly, planning his death by July, trying to live a full life before the inevitable.
This fatalism creates the tragedy of his relationship with Emmy. He loves her profoundly, but he believes his fate is sealed, which makes his decision to pursue her a profound, doomed sacrifice.
And Caleb's prophecy, dying peacefully in old age alongside Jimmy, it's positive, yet it's still paralyzing for him. He hides it because he fears sharing a positive destiny might break their bond, which proves that even good fortune can be a burden when it comes predetermined.
And the continuous revelation that Rose drew Emmy Winnie multiple times, the woodland girl, the kiss in the alley, it reframes Jack and Emmy's relationship as fated. But Jack fights for Emmy's free will, acknowledging her protest. You don't love me, Jack. It takes years to fall in love, not months. He wants her choice to be real, not just a consequence of fate.
So the tension between destiny and free will is resolved by their choices. Rose drew the potential outcome, but it was Emmy choosing forgiveness and Jack choosing sacrifice that brought the drawings to life in a way that defied the fatalism they had assumed.
And finally, healing from trauma. Grimsbane left indelible marks on Emmy. Her lost voice, the knife under her pillow, the absolute inability to trust.
The pivotal moment is her confession to Caleb. She admits her pure hatred for Grace, and Caleb forces the philosophical choice upon her. She wins when you become as heartless as she is.
And that's the breaking point where Emmy realizes that vengeance, if it's unrestrained, is just another form of self-imprisonment.
Which leads us to the climax, Section 6, the ultimate transformation of Conjure. This is where the hard rules of magic bend under the sheer will of the characters.
The scene of Jack's sacrifice is just brutal, and it fulfills the prophecy exactly. Oliver, using suppression conjury on Emmy, forces Jack to kneel and then slits his throat with a knife. The knife, the murder, the timing all foretold.
Emmy's reaction is immediate. Visceral retribution. She fires the pistol, killing Oliver. But the emotional culmination is that desperate act of healing.
The power of the combined relics. This is the magical synthesis. Emmy takes Rose's relic, the amplification one, and Grace's necklace, which contain Mateo's concentrated healing essence.
She presses the combined metallic mass onto Jack's wound, desperately channeling the essence of Papa's gift. The result is instantaneous and miraculous. The wound heals, the bleeding stops, his heart restarts, leaving him with an oddly shaped metallic relic where the essence merged.
This act fundamentally re-examines Emmy's belief that she couldn't heal, a belief tied to her trauma over her mother's death. Her transformation gift, combined with the pure amplification of Rose's relic and the concentrated healing legacy of her father, allows her to transcend her original gift.
She becomes a true healer and transformer of life, not just non-living matter. This is the magical resolution to her profound personal trauma and the ultimate legacy of her father.
In the aftermath, the immediate threats are neutralized. Emmy defeats Grace by setting off the fireworks, creating chaos that forces Keeper Windsor to unbind the prisoners. Grace is imprisoned in Grimsbane, joining Clara. The Strattons are dead.
The resolution, originality, and impact are critical here. The core group, Emmy, Jack, Jimmy, Caleb, they're free. But the institution they fought, the society, remains structurally intact.
And the final pairings are subtle but earned. Jimmy and Caleb, whose long-term destiny is implied by the drawing, and Emmy and Jack, starting their true, hard-won relationship, choosing the love predicted by the drawing rather than simply submitting to the fantasy of it.
But the cycle of power continues. Keeper Windsor immediately plans the vote for 2 new Triumvirate members, emphasizing that the institution is more resilient than any single family. The fight against elitism is ongoing. They merely cleared the corruption at the top.
And the ultimate act of closure is Emmy's visit to Grace in Grimsbane. It's a quiet, devastating victory. Emmy realizes Grace is now completely alone, observing that Grace had no one left in this world who cared for her. Grace failed in her quest for love and status, and her punishment is absolute isolation.
The final verdict on genre impact is clear, I think. The novel successfully merges the meticulous detail of the Gilded Age setting, the social architecture, the class structure, the high society gossip with high stakes, internal fantasy conflict.
Its unique focus on character-driven, psychological revenge, using social commentary as the fuel for its hard magic system and plot, is its lasting contribution. It takes the familiar tropes of class critique and imbues them with magical consequence.
So what's the core takeaway for you, the learner, as we wrap up this deep dive? It's that knowledge, in the form of Rose's prophecies, the rules of the Broom, and the society's secrets, is the only true source of power. Emmy succeeded not because she was magically the strongest.
No, she succeeded because she became the most informed and, critically, the most willing to sacrifice vengeance for the people she loved.
Which leaves us with one final provocative thought to mull over. The society blamed immigrants for the weakening Broom, but Clara's commercial corruption was the true cause. Now that the corruption is excised, and Emmy has introduced this element of life-changing healing to the magical system, is the Broom healing.
And if the fundamental magical source of power is recovering, what does that mean for the next generation of charmed people, the ones outside the immediate control of the society, who will inevitably challenge the remaining elitist structure?
What happens when the magic becomes too strong, too abundant, and the restrictive, secretive barriers put in place by the Triumvirate are no longer adequate to contain it?
The true epic struggle, it seems, has only just begun.